German prisoners of war were shocked by America's industrial might upon arriving in the United States. Memories of German prisoners. They thought Hitler's Germany was ahead of everyone else, but what they saw in the United States stunned them. Coca-Cola, hamburgers, new cars, theaters, cinemas, but most of all, they were surprised by American weapons. We thought we knew everything about America. Our newspapers had painted it as a land without culture, without history, a place of chewing gum, street gangs, and sloppy factories. We believed German engineering was the best, that German order was perfection itself, that we alone carried progress into the world. When we were captured and placed on trains, none of us realized that we were not being sent to humiliation, but to revelation. When the transport arrived at the port, we thought we were being taken to the edge of the world. We were exhausted and silent. On both sides stood American soldiers, not harsh, not mocking, simply calm. We expected insults, blows, maybe hatred. Instead, they handed us bottles of water and slices of soft white bread. It was strange. None of us could remember prisoners being greeted with dignity. Already there, on the dock, we began to understand. This was a different kind of country. On the way to the camp, they drove us in buses, and what we saw through the windows stunned us. The city stretched to the horizon. Cars moved in every direction, polished and gleaming. The streets were clean, the shop windows overflowing with goods. At every intersection, lights flashed red and green, and people smiled as they crossed. We watched in silence. Someone whispered, "If this is the land of barbarians, then what are we?" That first night in the camp, I remember the smells. We had lived with smoke and burning metal for years. Here, the air carried the scent of bread, coffee, and gasoline. They gave us clean clothes, beds with real sheets, and plates of hot food. No one shouted, no one humiliated us. At breakfast, there was a sweet drink in glass bottles. They called it Coca-Cola. We laughed at first, then tasted it, and the laughter stopped. One sip, and it felt as if the whole country poured into you. For the first weeks, we worked on farms, then at warehouses. The Americans treated us like human beings. No one demanded POWs, no one spoke of race, no one called us enemies. Even the guards smiled sometimes. It broke us slowly, without pain. We who had been trained to obey were confronted with people who commanded through confidence, not fear. When we first passed a factory, I could not believe my eyes. Dozens of chimneys, thousands of windows, noise and light everywhere. The gates opened and a line of brand new trucks rolled out, shining like toys in the sun. I asked a guard how many factories like that they had. He answered simply, "Many." I didn't understand what many really meant. Now I do. It was a death sentence, only spoken kindly. Those of us who had worked in German plants were shocked by their rhythm. The Americans produced in a day what would have taken us a week, and they did it without yelling, without slogans. People just worked. We saw women at the machines, teenagers, even old men. Everything ran like music. No fear, no hysteria, only confidence. We realized then that we had not lost the war on the battlefield, but here, on the assembly line. Sometimes they showed us movies. We gathered in a large hangar, sat on wooden benches, the lights went out, and the screen came alive. Cities, smiles, music. No speeches, no hatred, just life. It was disarming. Germany lived on slogans. America lived on motion. After the first screening, many could not sleep. One officer whispered in the dark, "If our Führer saw this, he would know we were doomed." The real shock came when we were allowed to work outside the fences. We saw the true America, streets full of restaurants, shops, and theaters. People walked with cups of coffee, laughing while music played from every corner. In the evenings, the radio sang songs with no fear, no anger, only hope. In those melodies we heard something we had long lost: joy. Once, riding through town on a truck, we saw a boy with an ice cream cone talking to a soldier at a crossing. They were laughing together. We watched them, unable to understand how an army could be part of ordinary life instead of ruling it. In Germany, the uniform inspired fear. Here, it inspired respect. It was another world. Some tried to explain it away, saying it was temporary, that America lived on illusions, that inside it was rotten. But day after day, those words faded. We saw the cities, the highways, the factories. We saw them building new houses even during war. We saw school children collecting scrap metal, women working in workshops with smiles on their faces. It was not propaganda. It was reality. In our camp, there were engineers, constructors, officers. They tried to analyze what we witnessed. One old master from Dresden said quietly, "They win because their workers believe in tomorrow. Ours feared yesterday." That was the truth. Steel without faith is just metal. Later, we were moved closer to town. We still lived in barracks, but nearby were American farms. Sometimes farmers brought us apples, sometimes conversation. They did not hate us. An old man once said, "The war will end, but life won't. Better to have living neighbors than dead enemies." That simple line struck deeper than any lecture. America did not seem clever, but it was wise. The greatest shock came when they took us to see a military plant. We walked in columns. The guards relaxed. Inside, light everywhere, noise, motion. Huge halls, hundreds of machines, thousands of people. It was not a factory, it was a living city. Women in scarves turning bolts, men hoisting airplane wings, posters on the walls, not with commands, but with smiles. One word appeared everywhere: speed. We stood there and understood. This was where the force that destroyed us was born. When the roar of the machines blended into a single pulse, I felt something unexpected. Not fear, not envy, respect. We had believed order meant rigidity, but here order was alive, flexible. Ours was obedience, theirs was purpose, and that is why their country moved while ours crumbled. After that visit, the camp was silent for days. No one bragged, no one argued. Even the most loyal stopped talking about miracle weapons and secret victories. We had seen the real miracle. It worked in 3 shifts and played jazz between them. In the evenings, we listened to American radio. Songs about love, about roads, about dreams. And it became clear, this nation fought not out of hatred, but out of love for life. Their energy came from within, from coffee, from laughter, from cinema and music. We, who called ourselves the superior race, stood behind a fence and listened to the sound of freedom. Months passed and I began to understand English, not perfectly, but enough. One song said, "Life goes on as long as you keep moving." I memorized that line. It was the answer to everything. We built an empire on fear. They built theirs on motion. When winter came, the Americans celebrated Christmas. They gave us gifts, books, cigarettes, sweets. Inside one box lay a note: "Merry Christmas from the Johnson family." We didn't know who they were, yet those words warmed us more than any fire. We realized that in this country, even victory didn't make people cruel. Sometimes journalists visited. They asked what we thought of America. We didn't know what to say. To tell the truth felt shameful. To lie felt impossible. One of us finally said, "We thought Germany was the center of the world. But the world is much larger." They printed it in a newspaper, and we were strangely proud, not because it was published, but because it was true. In spring, we were sent to work by a river where they were building a bridge. We saw soldiers and civilians working side by side, black, white, men, women. No shouting, no hierarchy, just one shared task. We stood apart, watching. It was incomprehensible. In our country, such a sight could have led to prison. Here it was normal. One evening I watched the sun set behind the factories. The sky turned orange, the chimneys glowed, the city pulsed. And I thought, we lost the war to those who knew how to live. We knew how to march, but not how to smile. We built tanks, but not lives. And that was the most terrible truth of all. When they finally released us, many did not want to leave. We missed the smell of gasoline, the hum of machines, the rhythm of freedom. We knew we were returning to ruins. America remained inside us, not as an enemy, but as a mirror. In that mirror we saw that strength could be kind. Years passed. Now I am an old man. Sometimes I dream of that camp, the smell of bread, the laughter of guards, the distant hum of cars. There is no pain in those dreams, only understanding. America was not a miracle. It was simply different. It did not worship power. It built comfort, joy, and hope. And that turned out to be more powerful than any weapon. When I tell young people about it, they stare in disbelief. It's hard for them to imagine that an enemy could be gentler than an ally. But I tell them this: we lost not because we were beaten, but because we misunderstood what it means to be human. America showed it through simple things: a hamburger, a movie, a smile. That was its victory. Now when I hear the old German marches, I feel uneasy. Every drumbeat sounds like an order. Every note carries fear. But when I play American jazz, I hear life itself. Then I understand why they succeeded. Their weapon was not steel, but the energy of freedom. One of my comrades, after returning to Germany, said, "We were prisoners not of America, but of our illusions." He was right. We had lived in a world of commands and formulas. They lived in a world of possibilities. We believed in greatness. They believed in movement. And that proved stronger than guns and tanks. Sometimes I wonder, if Hitler had known what we would see on American soil, would he have started the war? If he had seen cities where every light bulb outlasted his ideology, would he have understood that fate was already sealed? Tell me what you think. Was it all inevitable? Was Germany's defeat not a tragedy, but a lesson? I remember the day we left the camp. The Americans stood by the gate and waved. No shouting, no triumph, just farewell. Dust rose on the road, and beyond it stretched endless fields, cars, cities. America did not look like a land of conquerors. It looked like a place where victory didn't need proof. It simply existed. We rode in silence. Someone finally said, "Now I know what the word power truly means." We all stayed quiet, because we all understood real power is not in weapons, but in the ability to make life better. America knew how. We did not. And now, decades later, I still hear that hum, the hum of factories, the hum of freedom. It remains in me as a reminder that the world does not end where orders do. If someone asked what the greatest revelation of the war was for me, I would answer simply, America. Not its guns, not its army, its life. Because life itself turned out to be the most powerful weapon of all.